Today I'm celebrating 8 years of sobriety, and in this video, I'm going to share with you the three main benefits that have completely shifted and changed my life because of making this decision for myself. If you're new to my YouTube channel, welcome. My name is Carolyn Marie Yakopich. Thank you for being here. And I just am feeling so elated today because I'm just reflecting on my life and what it was like 8 years ago when I made that choice to be sober and how difficult that choice was because it wasn't the first time that I had chosen sobriety. So, years back, I had chosen it and I had been sober for 2 years and then I had relapsed. So, if I look back at all of the years, because over a 24-year span of my life, I was addicted for 22 years of those years. And then finally in 2017, I chose sobriety and it stuck because I was in a place that I was ready. I was really, truly ready. And I know everyone's path is different when it comes to sobriety. A lot of people go to recovery, AA, NA, and for me, that wasn't my path. What happened for me is I took a Kundalini yoga class and I felt an energy within me that I had never ever tapped into. And it is like I had glimpses of that energy in the past, but it was something that was a soul remembrance. It was something that was so deep within me that it was like I knew that there was something there for me. And so from the first moment that I took this class, something landed and I wanted to commit to it. So I did. So I did a daily practice and it took me from that first class that I took 2.5 months to choose my sobriety. Because what I was recognizing was that the energy that was moving through me and what I was experiencing was completely opposite to what drinking and doing drugs was doing to my system and how I was behaving under the influence versus how I was behaving from this upgraded energy when I fully tapped in to my own energy, my own kundalini. So when I look at this, I feel so grateful. Like when I look and I reflect and I feel into the journey that it's been over these last 8 years, so much has happened and so much has changed. And the main things are these three things that I'm going to share with you right now. So, the first one, it is a given. And I mean, I think that it's a very common sense kind of benefit that you would think of is mental clarity. Mental clarity, like thinking of knowing that waking up and not having to sift through the night before through my system, right? Not having to deal with still having, influential chemicals in my body as I'm attempting to go through my day, attempting to get up and do the things that I need to do, whether it be go to work or, you know, have a meeting or whatever, like whatever I needed to do. If I had to meet with people, or if I was with my family and like having to show up and pretend like I'm fine, especially around family who knows me so well, and like putting on the face, putting on the mask, putting on the armor and just being like, okay, like I can do this, and that was a big part of it, like being so strong and thinking that it's okay, that I can still make it. I can still do it. So it's like that addict that is still fully functional, but will still have a lot of mess ups where it's like there's a part of me that's not actually able to make it to work today. So I have to call in sick because I'm too hungover. But no one would ever know that because I usually keep it all together and I can usually get by with keeping it together, right? So that is the big thing, mental clarity. And I mean, mental clarity on so many levels can help us to move the needle in the direction of where we want to go in our life, right? When we have mental clarity, we are able to actually see a greater vision for our own life. When we're in addiction, it's easier to accept where we're at and just stay where we're at because it's working, at least on some level, it's working. And to keep perpetuating that same cycle and that same experience because I can still use the drugs and I can still use the alcohol, and it's a little bit of a vacation, right? It's a little bit of a vacation. So another layer, I'm going to move into the next phase. Another layer is emotional empowerment. So when we are under the influence, it is actually what they call it spirits, right? So let's start there. They call it spirits for a reason, right? Have you ever noticed, either within yourself or within another person, them being under the influence and turning, or yourself, and then turning into a whole new personality? It's like, I get it. I get it. They say it's like you become unhinged, you know. Um, but it's like there's a layer beyond just letting loose. There's a layer happening beyond, just being, that free kind of like, I can do anything now. It's like that liquid courage, right? Energy that they talk about. Spirits. Let's talk about that for a second. So there are spirits everywhere, whether we see them, whether we've ever had an experience of seeing them or not. They're everywhere. And there are some spirits that are lingering and that they really want to still be in a body, in a physical body. They want to still be on earth, or they're bound to earth and they're not really fully like liberated in themselves, right? So it happens when we are under the influence. It actually pokes holes in our auric field. And from those gaps, those leaks in our energy field, we open the gateway for another spirit to come in and take over. It's kind of like channeling. When people open their channel and they channel another person that's crossed over, or a different ascended master or an archangel, and they're opening their field, but they're doing it consciously. They're doing it with the awareness that that's the intention. And then they're getting out of the way so that the message can come through. Whereas when we're under the influence, we are unconsciously allowing this to happen, and we don't know who's coming through or what's coming through. And so it's like playing Russian roulette. I remember being, going out and being excited. It's a party night out again and whatever. And I never knew what that night would turn out like. I never knew if I was going to black out, if I was going to meet someone, if I was going to have the best time of my life, if, I would get into some trouble, right? Like I've had so many, I don't want to get into details, but I've had so many mistakes that I don't regret, but so many mistakes that happened, and so many traumatic things happened under the influence. And yes, there was equally a side where I had some of the funnest times partying, it's like of course, but nothing compares to now. Nothing compares to the fun and the excitement and the oh my God, the open-hearted expansion that happens from sobriety. Because there's also that level of mental clarity that I just talked about that helps me to remember, and it doesn't suppress, right? So first of all, we have the spirits coming in that I'm talking about. There's that aspect. Then we have the unconscious behaviors, the unconscious feelings, the emotions, everything we've suppressed and repressed down. That when, like I always thought, for me, like alcohol was like a little bit of fuel for the fire. So, and then if you mix things, like it's like chemicals going into your body. So the chemical reaction happening in your body can just all of a sudden implode, explode things out of you, that your behavior is coming out, and it's like, who did I just turn into? Right? So some of it can be you and your own unconscious subconscious patterning that's coming out sideways, that's coming out, unconsciously. So you're not, meaning you don't have the awareness of where it's coming from, and you don't even have the awareness that you're doing it because you're so heated in the moment. Especially, that's the thing with drugs and alcohol. It's like you take on these behaviors and they just take over. They literally just take over. I used to have a very, very bad temper. Not all the time, but it would come out. And I would have a temper. And then I would have the peace and the free loving, wild child, like the peace and love, it was like there were so many, and it was like one end of the spectrum, the other end of the spectrum, like polar opposites. So it's like, which Carolyn are we going to get today? It's like that's kind of like, if you think about it, a scary place to be, right? But in active addiction, you just don't care. However, what I can say that was a little unique about my own journey is that I started with spirituality at a very young age. So, like, I was actively going to workshops, trainings, programs, healings, you know, hiring practitioners, and like, just really working on myself, because I knew underneath, in those glimpses between my, benders that I would go on, I knew that my soul was calling me to something more. So this is the other layer, right? Which the emotional empowerment's such a big one. It's such a big thing, because when I was a child, I was empathic from childhood onward. I'm still empathic, but now I know how to manage my emotions, and I know when I'm feeling something that's somebody else's and when I'm feeling something that's mine. And if I don't know and I'm feeling a lot, my invitation always, in awareness, because of the mental clarity I now have, is to separate from that person, to just take a pause, like, even if I'm with somebody hanging out, I might go to the bathroom. I might just be like, hey, I'm just going to go to the bathroom. And then I walk away. I have some time. I feel my own energy field. And it's like, okay, this is what's going on within me. And now I can feel what's going on within them. And that's not me, that's them. Like, it's like this can actually happen. And you don't always, even with this mental clarity, I don't, you wouldn't have to necessarily leave the situation to feel it, because the clarity is so strong now. It's going to show up in that moment, and you'll be aware. Especially, the longer you are sober, the more aware you become, the more conscious you become, the more opportunity you have for your consciousness to expand. And then you reach higher and higher states of consciousness. And what happens is you get to maintain and sustain a higher level of consciousness without going back down and defaulting into a lower state of consciousness. And it's not about hierarchy, it's about levels of awareness. And the more aware we are, the more we can, manage ourselves, not from a controlled state, but like manage our emotions, feel what we're feeling, honoring it, working at our spiritual growth, our spiritual, evolution, and really taking care. So when I backtrack, what I was saying about this, childhood, is that from this young age, I felt so much. I felt other people around me. I felt spirits. I saw spirits. I had a great imagination, which wasn't always an imagination. It was literally my connection plugged in, but it was not nurtured, because it was nothing I ever spoke about. I didn't ask about it. I didn't talk about it. It was like I had my own experience of it, and it made me shut down. And then at a very young age, I started drinking and doing drugs, because the emotions and the feelings and the sensitivity that I had felt like way too much. So it was my way of, I don't fit in. I'm an outcast. I don't belong. I've been bullied. Like, there were so many layers of the story that created the choice. And then once I started doing the inner work and actively going to programs and courses and trainings And, like I did my yoga teacher training, I would have time frames of sobriety, like shorter bursts of sobriety. And then it's like maybe I was sober for a week and then I'd have a big bender on the weekend for a few days. Like it was just a cycle that was just all over the place. It was like not consistent. It was very inconsistent, but it was continuous. That was the one thing it was continuous. So like no rhyme or reason. And so and I always remember having an underlying fear when I'm like excited about going out and what is going to happen. And it's like I always knew underneath that there was a potential for the situation to turn. So the more I did these courses, wrapping that back around, excuse me, the more I did these courses, the more awareness I received about myself, the more emotionally empowered I became little by little. Because, of course, going back into the default of drinking and doing drugs would pull me back into old patterns. And, but the awareness was there a little bit more. I remember going to India, and this is back in 2003, and going to the Osho ashram. And I remember like all the teachings. I mean, my favorite, I mean, not all the teachings, there's so many teachings, but for me, if I can like wrap it up in a very small little package, it's like awareness was the main teaching. And I remember one of his quotes is awareness is the key, the master key that opens all the doors. So awareness, meditation, and totality being total in everything that you do, right? It's like that is what being in the present moment is. It's not being like multitasking and doing all the things. It's like being here and now. So awareness, the more that I cultivated this awareness, the easier it was for me to see what was going on behind the scenes, the easier it was for me to see why things had turned out the way they did. And at the same time, none of that was really important when it came down to it, because the biggest choice of sobriety, that was the importance. It was like what happens when you choose it and you stick to it and you commit to yourself. And the level of emotional empowerment that comes from that commitment to the self, it starts developing a greater sense of self-awareness on a level far beyond, ping-ponging, flip-flopping, teeter-tottering back and forth, or pendulum swinging from sobriety to drinking, or I just do it every once in a while, or I have a drink right after work, or whatever the story is, right? Each individual is different, but it's like instead of it being like I'm not fully living this sober lifestyle. And it's so funny because the word sober, it sounds so like not somber, but it just sounds so level, but like the amount of emotions that can be experienced. And I just think like, emotional empowerment, right? It's like, yes, you'll still have lows. Yes, there will still be experiences of like feeling confused and feeling like in the unknown, especially these days. But then there's this level of immense gratitude. Whew, I feel that so deeply. Like I just feel like, whew, the tears are coming right behind the immense gratitude for being able to experience this life in all of its colors, in all of its forms, in all of its dimensions. Like tapping into experiences and feelings and emotions of immense love for both the self and for others. That is a gift. It is truly a gift. And the gratitude that when we are able to be that feeling of gratitude, when we are vibrating that emotion, we are just opening to realms beyond our imagination that are in alignment with our heart, with our soul, opportunities that are beyond what we could have imagined for ourselves, people that are showing up into our lives that feel like it makes it a continuous blessing to be in their presence. And then we do the same for them. There are really so many beautiful experiences that come from this choice, really. And especially being on the spiritual path and this being part of, an inner calling, a soul's calling to be in leadership in this way. It's like what can open up is really beyond imagination. It really is. And I've had some experiences that it's like there's no words to describe the gratitude, the emotions, the feelings, the bliss, the ecstasy. Feeling bliss and ecstasy without having to take any of that to make it happen internally. Vibrating every cell, every fiber of our being in that state of excitement and inspiration really is such a gift. It really, really is. So, emotional empowerment comes with that mental clarity because then we are very aware of what we are feeling. And we give ourselves grace because we have the tools, right? Like being on this journey for 8 years now, I have accumulated so many tools over the years, and sometimes none of the tools work. I'll just be honest with you. Daily meditation for me is like a non-negotiable in some which way to do something every day to reset my energy. It's really about energetic practice to come into coherence. But there are some times that no matter what I do, I still am going through emotions and they're meant to be felt, they're meant to be released. And this is really, for me, what I feel in this time of acceleration, in this time of our souls ascending and us. It's really about deconditioning, unbecoming, releasing all the illusion, right? Lifting that veil of illusion and just coming back to our connection and really being like, oh, yes, I am a sovereign divine being and I am a clear channel in this present moment. And I have so many gifts to share. It's like that remembrance that can come online so quickly when we remember, but there are times that the old programs will still come up because they're not fully released. And we're in the time where everything is accelerating and it's going to come through in waves, and we are here for it. We've chosen to be here at this time for this very reason. We've been training it for this entire lifetime and for entire lifetimes. And now we're here and we have an opportunity as the initiate, our life is our initiation, to keep going through these deaths, transformations, and rebirths into yet another expanded state of consciousness, and then holding that frequency that's here, and then going through another shedding and death of whatever that other feeling is that we didn't let ourselves feel, or the old experience that we had that we didn't fully allow whatever is stored in the body to be expressed, and now it's coming out and we feel it, we let it go, and that transformation's happening, and then we come to another ascended state of consciousness, and then we're able to hold that frequency, and it just keeps moving like this spiral, right? And we keep growing and evolving and opening. And the more that we can hold that higher frequency, we become the living example of what's possible for other people in our authenticity and showing up truly in who we are without apologizing for who we are in any moment. Not apologizing if we change our mind, not apologizing if we say no, right? Like it's like really honoring ourselves, which is part of that process of emotional empowerment, really honoring where we're at. And the more that we honor, the more we show up in our authenticity. So this leads me to my third thing, right? That is like one of the benefits that has completely shifted and changed everything for me. And this is also directly linked to the mental clarity and the emotional empowerment is heightened intuition. Heightened intuition, it starts with your body becoming more of a clear vessel as it's releasing all the toxins out of the system. And then from your body being cleared, your mind is going to open up to more mental clarity. From not putting chemicals in the body, that mental clarity will keep you in the present moment, which still the natural state of the mind is to fluctuate into thoughts. And I believe it's said that with testing, you're right, like with different testing, it is said that every minute we go unconscious 6 times on average. So that means like I could be focused on something and then I'm like, oh, let me look at my phone. Oh, I wonder what that person, if they message me back. Like it's like that is the nature of the mind to like, it's the monkey mind, right? Playing the cymbals or the accordion or whatever you want, the drums, whatever you want the monkey to be playing, it's playing it in your head, right? So this is the thing. It's really about coming into that presence. And when the mental clarity is there, we become more aware, right? That awareness that I was talking about with the emotional empowerment, mental clarity, when the awareness is there, we are able to be here and now. And so now that the physical body has released the toxins, we're becoming clear in our vessel, we become clear in our mind, we become more present. And what happens? In our presence, there's gaps between the fluctuations of our thoughts. And in those gaps, there's silence, there's stillness it's like we're suspended in time and space. And in that space and time suspension, there's an opportunity to receive. And when we are open in that way, we receive messages. And this is the wisdom's all within, right? So it sounds like I'm receiving, messages from, my divine guidance, from my higher self. It's all within. It's all about having, right? So presence, coming back to that, and awareness. It's having an open heart because our body is now in a relaxed state of being, having an open heart, an open mind, and in that stillness, receiving the guidance, receiving the nudges, the feelings, the sensations, the knowingness, the voice, the visions, whatever it is. And then what happens gradually as, this is what happened for me. And I know everybody's path is different. This is just an example of what my journey was. The more that I maintained my sobriety over the years, the more my intuition developed. And the more my intuition developed, the stronger I received my messages. So it was very clear that this is my intuition speaking right now. And what was key for this to happen was to actually not only receive the guidance, but to listen to it, to follow it, and to trust it. Because the more that we receive and we trust what we're receiving, and then we take the aligned action, right? Whatever that aligned action to what we're receiving as a message, whether it's like, don't hang out with that person, I don't feel very well around them. And then we listen, and then we move away in another direction. Or it's like, ooh, I think that opportunity is really, it's lighting me up. It feels really good. I think there's something there. And then it's like following that, right? And then something else opening up from that, right? And remembering that when we are feeling things that are less than favorable, like say what I just said, like about that person doesn't feel very good, right? Knowing that we are being divinely protected and redirected in those moments. So when we can actually trust in that guidance, then we develop our intuition. We're creating self-love. The more we listen and the more we respond and act in alignment with that guidance, the more we start to, again, it's part of the self-honoring process, self-love, self-honoring, the more we expand, the more we step closer and closer to, it's not even closer and closer. Let me reframe that. The more we rise into our greatest potential. That's it. That's it. It's like living the life. I wanted to say step closer to living the life of our dreams, but it's really not about that. It's like we are here now. We are able to live the life of our dreams now. It really is a choice away. And I'm not saying that anyone has to choose sobriety, but it's a conscious choice to be fully present and to be I don't even know what word wants to come in, uninfluenced by the outside world or by what we're putting into our body, to really be a clear conduit and to hold our own field, our own energy. And that's the other thing. Remember, I was talking about the pokes in the aura, like the holes in the aura, poking holes in the aura. So when we're sober, we can work on the expansion of our aura. The more present we are, the more open-hearted we are, the more our aura expands. And the more our aura expands, the more we don't even actually have to create boundaries like from a mind space. That's not how it works. It's about the frequency. It's about what we're feeling inside. And the more we clean up all that old patterning and start to really become this clear channel and open-hearted. And, of course, like I said, there's days we're not always going to be like, woo, but it is more sustainable. It is more, it's more of a consistent experience and state of being. And then our aura becomes so strong that only that of wholeness, truth, and love can enter. And then we start seeing the beauty around the world instead of seeing the chaos, instead of seeing what's going wrong, instead of, taking on the emotions of the outside world that are not serving anybody by doing that. If we can come back to the self and choose what we want to be in, gratitude, love, joy, expansion, inspiration, empowerment, vitality. It's like all these words are just lighting me up by saying them. If I can choose that every single day of my life, I become the blueprint for a new world, a new earth. I become the blueprint for that. I'm choosing this, and it's not about digging my head in the sand. No, I'm well aware of the chaos going on in the world. I just choose, I choose my frequency, right? I choose my frequency. So there are so many benefits beyond even what I've touched in this video, but these are the three main ones that I wanted to touch on today as I'm celebrating my 8 years: mental clarity, emotional empowerment, and heightened intuition. And all of these have brought me onto my soul's purpose, my soul's journey, my path of sharing my gifts, my abilities, my intuitive guidance with others and really helping others step into their own sacred leadership, right? So it has just been a blessing to unfold. And now this year, I have brought in my own body of work that I have channeled through healing modalities and sacred feminine empowerment practices, and working with women in my program, which is the I Am program, that is really allowing them to develop their own gifts and abilities and refine them so that they can be their unique expression in sacred feminine leadership in the world, right? So it's like moving through the layers, and it's been such a powerful journey. Like I had no idea when the idea came through what it would actually be. And the idea has come through a few years ago. The name came through a few years ago, and the idea of the program came through last year. And so this year, it started channeling through me. I just got out of my own way. I let go of all the teachings I've ever learned from any other lineage. And it was just like a whole new thing that just started coming through. And it was really such a beautiful experience. And so, being able to trust intuition on a level of that, and we just finished our first 3-month program of initiation, which is the first level. Lift the veil of illusion and illuminate your sacred feminine power. And we work through the maiden, mother, and crone energies in these areas of the body. We worked with womb healing and empowerment, heart healing and empowerment, third eye healing and empowerment, and moving into our authenticity fully and being that full expression of who we are in our sacred feminine. And this is where it's going. We're eventually moving into this sacred union, right? Because we all have feminine and masculine within us. So as we move into phase 2 of this program, we're working into leadership. And it's like bringing our leadership, refining our gifts and our abilities, and that sacred masculine within us, after receiving our intuitive guidance, takes action in our business, takes action in what we're bringing and birthing forth into the world. So yes, I'm so excited about this journey, and I'm so grateful because this here is 8 years of sobriety. I'm living proof it's example, and I really hope that you have received some benefit from this video. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. If you are sober, what your experience is, if you've been thinking about sobriety, if you have questions, if you have insights that you want to share, I would absolutely love to hear from you. And I'm also going to drop a link in the description that is the waitlist for the next initiation program, that 3-month mentorship for women, if that's something that you feel called to, if it resonates. And remember, subscribe to my channel, like this video, it helps me, and I really appreciate you being here. So thank you so much, and I will see you on the next video.